Good evening. Welcome to episode 192 of Cantinho Benfiquista podcast. I, as always, am your host. I am Mike, and with me, actually, hold on, I have to change my output. Hopefully the audio is better.
That's better. Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah. Let's try that again. Welcome to episode 192 of Cantinho Benfiquista podcast. One step closer to the top. This weekend, we took a nice 3-point step towards the top of the ladder as it relates to the Portuguese League. We will talk about last week's emotional roller coaster that was in Monaco, a game that we seemed destined to lose. And within 4 minutes, we turned the game on its head. We'll talk about the upcoming month. We have some difficult fixtures coming up in the month of December. I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games between now and the end of the year. So they're going to come thick and fast. We actually have a break now until Saturday when we take on Vitória Guimarães. So this is like the first break we've had in a while that's not an international break, that the players can actually recover. And the coach actually has an opportunity to have all the players available to him and can actually practice and not be just doing recovery sessions and things of that nature. But before we get started, I've got Kenny with me. I've got Jason. Bill and Oscar have the night off. Kenny, how are you?
Good. Good to be back again. Yeah, man. It was a good week for Benfica, result wise, right? But yeah, happy to be here.
Jason, how are you?
Good. Like Kenny said, it was a good week overall. Hopefully we can continue this push.
Yeah, let's hope. For those of you that are in the chat, as always, leave us your comments, your thoughts, your opinions. We welcome all your comments in the chat, so please make this interactive with us. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, share, all those fun things. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the thumbs up button for this live. We would appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel on YouTube, please do so. It takes you 5 seconds at the most. So let's get started. So we got Monaco away, a game that Monaco hadn't lost in the Champions League. So they were, I believe before we played them, they were second or third, if I'm not mistaken. They had 3 wins, 1 draw, and 0 losses. They had defeated Barcelona at home. They had tied Dinamo Zagreb away. They had beat Red Star Belgrade 5-1 at home. They went to Bologna, who we play next, and won 1-0. And up until the 84th minute, they seemed destined to capture another 3 important points. And out of nothing, they walked away with nothing. So I'll give my opinion on the first half. I know Jason and Kenny were tied up with a few things, and they mostly saw the second half. But I'll give my thoughts on the first half. I just thought we looked not great from what we've been used to. And just let me go through the starting 11. I mean, I feel like our 11 now is pretty consistent game to game. I feel like Bruno Lage just found his foundation in terms of the 11. I don't know if that's mainly because he hasn't really had much time to work on many other things, and it's basically like that's the safest bet. So Trubin, Ba, Tomás Araújo, Otamendi, Carreras, Kokshu, Florentino, Auschwitz, Di Maria, Pavlidis, and Aktürkoğlu. The game itself, again, in that first half was pretty average at best. I will say the goal that Monaco scores, I was watching the highlights again just now before we came on live, and I thought there's a few mistakes there that can't happen. Is first, Ba, his pressure in the final third isn't great. And then Auschwitz comes to the line and has the player basically on the sideline with the ball on the line. And you can't let him turn there, right? Like, you either put him out of bounds, you foul him, you can't let him turn. He lets him turn. Tomás Araújo gets sucked out into their half. They play a quick 1-2. Now Tomás is out of the play. Ba's out of the play. They swing it wide. Trubin faces a shot with no contestant, no defender in front of him, saves it wide, which is what you want your goalie to do. Save it wide, not in front of you. And then if you continue to watch the play, Ba goes to shut down the guy down the line. Tomás Araújo still hasn't gotten all the way back and leaves that passing lane where they play it across and score the goal. So I think in my opinion, there's a variety of of culprits that can raise their hand and say, I was at fault for that. I think at the very least, that play has to stop when Auschwitz has it on the sideline. Like we have to stop that play there and foul it. I've seen people blame Trubin for that save. I don't understand how we can blame the keeper. I mean, you want your keeper to push it wide. Trubin's had his moments, right? We can't take that away, but you want your keeper to save it wide and not forward. He saved it wide. It was almost going out the sideline or the end line, and the guy caught it and played it back. But with that said, Benfica had their own 1 or 2 chances in that first half. Di Maria had that gift that they gave to him, and you would have expected him in the form that he's in to have tucked that away. Goalie saved it with his leg. It looked like he was also stuck between 2 minds of like, do I play it across? Do I take the shot? And then in the following corner kick, I believe it was the following corner kick, Otamendi has a header in the 6th that he just knocks over the crossbar. So we had our chances. I thought we were unfair to go in, or we were unlucky to go into the half down 1-0. I think we could have gone in at tied, but I also will say that I thought we were lucky to have gone into the half with 11 players because, I mean, take your pick, either Tino or Carreras easily could have gotten a second yellow card. Anything that you guys, from what you saw, read, would you add to that in terms of the first half?
Jay, do you want to go?
So I was watching the highlights. I'm actually watching them right now as you're speaking. And I did see the goal that you mentioned, how they left like the left side all open, and it was kind of brutal. So like I said, I didn't see, but like what you described was kind of spot on. It looked like we didn't play that much in the first half. From the highlights, I only saw that Di Maria 1-on-1, the gift that he missed. But other than that, I mean, I had not much to add on the first half. I do have comments on the second half, but we can let Kenny go first on the talking.
No, I mean, I do remember seeing the Monaco goal, and my first instinct was that Trubin mishandled that. It looks like from one of the angles that he I don't want to say mishandles the save, but he doesn't get his full.
He doesn't get a fully strong hand on it,
right? Even though it does deflect where you.
Nonetheless, it goes down the
where you
sideline,
want it,
line.
right?
Yeah.
It goes where you want it to go. That's right. But yeah,
then it's sloppy
I
defending though. After that,
it is.
Correct.
It is the whole buildup was sloppy. So it's I get it, but I could see why some would want to put some blame on Trubin, but it was sloppy to begin with.
It's crazy to like. I can watch that whole play multiple times, and like I can pick out 2-3 players before I even think about the goalie in that situation.
Yeah.
But again, he's had his moments. I don't think this was one of them. But to each their own. Jay, I'll pass it to you in the second half. What did you see? Not having seen the first half entirely, what was your take? Right, because you then have an unbiased opinion. It's almost like a fresh start for you. What's your take on that second half?
Yeah, so I didn't know what the score was, and as soon as I saw it, I was kind of pissed off because I was like, "God damn it, we're already losing." And then the second half, it started off with like fireworks, right? So they came off and hit the post, I believe. They started off hitting the post right away, and then we tied it up. We then got a disallowed goal from Monaco on their end. Shortly right after.
Which I had a note here. Otamendi cannot go to that play the way he goes to that. Well, the disallowed goal, if you watch it back, the ball gets played to the guy in the center circle.
Yeah.
He commits and goes at him and then changes his mind and turns around and just catches the guy offside by like a toenail. But like either you got to commit and clean him out, or you drop. Like you can't get caught in between again.
Yeah. It was very, very fortunate for us because I was in the high. I was like, all right, we tied it up. Maybe we could turn this around. And then that goal happened. I was like, come on. Luckily, it was a disallowed goal. And then we go in and we get a disallowed goal by like a half of his calf or whatever, the side of his thigh or whatever. But it was a nice play overall in that goal. Di Maria with the cross buck coming in, flying in. And then that got disallowed. And then we get the perfect the perfect script, right? We get a second yellow for them. We get a red card. We're up in man. And
30
I
minutes
don't
to
know
play.
what the hell happened. Our team fell apart. They took Tino out of the game. I know there's not a lot of Tino fans out there, but they took Tino out of the game and it completely destroyed our midfield, like in my opinion. Monaco started playing like we were down to man. Like the way that they were playing, I felt like we were down to man. Like I was getting so frustrated with this game. You guys heard me on the chat. I was bad mouthing Laj. I was like, these subs were terrible, this and that. And then they scored in the 67th minute, I believe, down like to put themselves up 2-1. I was like, what the hell's going on? Like this is
another sloppy defending play.
Yeah, it was completely. I think it was on Ba's side and right down the middle. I think Coxu was sleeping.
And Coxu were just sleeping.
Yeah, like it was just wide open for the guy to take a shot. Then there was like about 15 minutes of like back and forth, nothing really much major going on. Laj makes 2 more subs where he brought in Leandro.
That was after we scored.
Yeah. Oh, it was after?
Yeah, we scored and then he brought in Barreiro.
But I thought it was before. But anyways, we get the goal out of the 2 subs. I didn't like disagree with the subs too much, but like I just didn't like it. Like Pavlili shouldn't have came out, and I think they took the 2 incorrect guys out.
I agree with that too.
But then Cabral comes in flying with the header with a beautiful ball by Di Maria in the 84th.
He might have got a concussion on that, by the way.
Probably, to be honest. And then
or he was stunned that he even got a
that
piece
too.
Yeah, to be honest, he didn't even know that he scored it. Probably
it took a while to get off the ground.
Yeah. And then we somehow at the end another great ball by Di Maria. Zeke fucking put it back. Houdini, I call him Houdini. Houdini puts it in the back of the net. To me, we stole 3 points.
100%.
We honestly, I think the game overall deserved a tie. I think if I was to say like how was it, I think it should have been a 2-2 tie. But sneaking out of there with a 3-2 victory, getting the 3 points, to me that was huge. It could be a momentum builder type game, winning on the road and champions in Monaco, a tough opponent. Putting yourselves, I think, putting Benfica back in the mix to try to reach the top 8 if possible. I know we have a 2 more tough games ahead of us, or 3 more games ahead of us, but I think it puts us in a good position with 9 points. Yeah, we have 9 points, right?
Yeah,
9.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think overall in the second half it was a lot more entertaining. I think we could even win up another goal. We had another 1-on-1 in the 90th minute. But I think overall the second half was it was very entertaining. You could feel the team was really excited to get that W. And then the speech after that you shared on Facebook, dude, that like it made me like I was ready to run through a wall. Like if the team doesn't get motivated by that, like I don't know what the hell's wrong with them, to be honest. But
yeah, Kenny, I'll pass it to you. Anything that you want to add to what Jay said? And I will say that when he made the subs, right, he took out Florentino and he took out Pavlidis and he brought in Ertuğrul Cabral and Amdouni. One thing that we were struggling with in the first half was the fact that their midfield trio was just more athletic. They were, just covering so much ground. And our midfield trio, Auschwitz, Tino, and Kokshu, they weren't a match for them, right? And I think him taking Tino out, despite the fact that we were up a man at this point, right, I felt like that killed the game for us in terms of like grabbing hold of it. And then when Barreiro came in, it was already 2-2, but I felt like the game drastically changed. Like, and that could be part because we had just tied, right? We've got the momentum, and Monaco now is like, fuck, let's just sit back and just try to hold on to at least this draw. But I felt like his involvement in those final minutes, I felt was very clear. Yeah. But it could be a mix of a variety of different situations that led to that.
Yeah, it almost felt like, he took Tino out and then realized the mistake he made.
Yeah,
and reverted it in.
Yeah.
Right.
Because why else would you put a center midfielder in once you've tied it and you're up a man, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there was that second half, right, when he made that sub to take out Tino, like Jay said, right, we just got lazy. I mean, Koksu to me was already kind of playing lazy in that second half. but it completely. I mean, we just weren't going after balls. There were balls bouncing 3-4 times and not a Benfica player around, and then all of a sudden, Monaco was down our throat again. So it was a rough, 15 minutes there or whatever. And then I even remember, Oscar was getting on a flight. He's like, these last 10 minutes better be completely different, right? And then the light switch went on and we took over. It was kind of crazy. So definitely a crazy finish. A must. I mean, at one point I was like, we need to get a point out of this, but really, I think we really needed the 3 points, and we got out of there with the 3 points. So overall, we got the result. Laj, although some can criticize the subs, I think he realized his mistake and fixed it real quick. Which again, we don't typically see that, right? We didn't see that with Roger. We would, he'd make dumbfounding subs and we'd be over here scratching our heads. And this was one that I can almost follow the headspace that Laj was in, and then it turned out being the right choice. So
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it ended up panning out. We needed those 3 points, especially once they went down a man. In terms of stats, I mean, the stats and what we saw in the game, I think, don't really tell the actual story. I mean, before we made it 1-1, they had that shot off the post that the guy bodies Otamendi, and he turns and hits it off the post. So, I mean, we could have very well have gone down 2-0 before that defender gifted us the goal for Pavlidis. But we had 18 shots against 11. We had 8 shots on target versus 5. Actions in the opponent's box, we had 35 versus 29, 7 corners versus 4. Defensive actions in the opponent's midfield, they had 16, we had 10. That doesn't surprise me because they were all over us for most of the game, even when they had 10. Again, I think that midfield trio was just suffocating us. And we ended up with more possession of the ball, which is a bit surprising to me because I felt like for the most of the time we didn't have the ball. But interesting to say the least. Goal point gave Kokshu the highest rating, which was a 6.8, him and Amdouni, which surprises me. I didn't think Kokshu looked great. He had a couple of moments, but defensively, without the ball, along with most of the other teammates, just lacked that intensity, lacked that awareness of occupying space. You guys didn't see the first half, but Aktürkoğlu in the first, not even exaggerating, 10 minutes, he may have missed 8 passes. That's not even exaggerating. The amount of passes he missed in the first 10-15 minutes was absolutely brutal. It was nothing he could do was coming out right. One-on-ones, crosses, you name it, he couldn't do it right. And it was just what the hell is going on with this team? I felt like that set the tone for the rest of the game, which was frustrating. I did want to mention here. So Otamendi. So we've had this conversation before. It's a constant conversation that comes up, and then it was associated to him wanting to go to River Plate. He came out and said that's not true. Kenny, I'm going to ask you this and Jay, you can chime in. At this point, right, and we had talked about this in the past, and I think most of us said, right, he's realistically our leader, right? And if you take him out of the equation, do we have another leader in that 11 that can really grab the team by the scruff of the neck with the experience and being able to just kind of lead the team? As a side note here, we see a Porto team today that doesn't have Pep, right? And they seem all out of sorts, right? They seem to be lacking that leader mentality. Do you think at this point, Kenny, that, Otamendi's had his fair share of moments? Do you think it's a situation where Laj is in the boat where shit's going really good? I mean, in his first 15 games back, right? So he's got 15 games played, 13 wins, 2 losses, 47 goals scored, 9 goals conceded. Those 2 losses are in the Champions League. In his first 15 games with Benfica, when he first came around, he had 12 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw, 41 goals scored, and 13 conceded. So in terms of the numbers, they're pretty similar. and his only loss and draw in his first 15 games version 1.0 were both in Europa League, right? So European football has been his downfall, air quotes, in the first 15 now and his previous first 15. So do you think he's in a situation where it's like, dude, this guy is like a huge personality on this team, World Cup champion, like, do I really want to create those waves at this moment, or do I just keep giving him that confidence? And if there is a moment where it's just, it's clear cut, right? Like that, right? Or he gets injured, right? Then I need to make that change. But like, do you think he's in a moment where it's like, I just don't want to create the waves if I don't have to?
Yeah, I could see that. And I'm a believer in, having that type of leadership on the field, right? Not just sitting on your bench. I think it could, by making a change like that, it could shake up the mentality of this, even like a Di Maria, right? Probably his best friend on the team, so you don't want to, I would not want to see that type of change. I know Otamendi hasn't been great this year, but we're still getting the job done. And I do think in these type of matches, or even against the rivals in the league, you do need that mentality, even, and you got to eat some of those mistakes that he's making at this point in his career, which are inevitable. I think at this point, his form is trending the other way. He's, but he's still a veteran. He's still a professional, and he's got that leadership mentality and that garra, and that kind of controls the whole system. I think he is part of that core, and it is needed on the field. And I really don't see anyone else on the field that could do that. I really don't.
That's my biggest concern. Just quickly,
Yeah.
Jay, before I pass it to you, SLBS says Di Maria could be a great leader. And he also says, or he or she, sorry, maybe Auschwitz could be captain, but not sure he has the personality. I guess we don't really have a leader, but a good team unity. And Jay, before I pass it to you, I agree with this, right? Like Di Maria could be a leader, right? I think a lot of the players look up to him, right? Just because of the career he had and what he's accomplished. But like when I think leader, like I think Pep, I think Otamendi, like guys that are going to fucking get in your face, that are going to lose their shit, right? And that are going to reprimand you when they need to, right? Where like Auschwitz could be a leader in the sense of like leading by example, right? But like I don't see him, at least from what we see, being a leader in the sense of like grabbing a hold of the team, verbally sending a message to the team and saying, let's go. I'm going to lead the charge and let's go. Jay, what do you think?
So I can argue that Di Maria has been more of a leader this year than Otamendi, with the way he speaks to the public and tries to unite the club overall. Like over the weekend when he scored, he's giving like the hug thing, where it just means nós todos juntos, like we have to be together. Otamendi shies away from the commentary on big losses. You don't see him stepping up. We've criticized leadership on Benfica when there's a bad game and they send last year they would send Ruben Neves to the Neves to the podium and let him take the heat instead of the captain stepping in and taking the heat on that aspect.
But in his defense, Otamendi came out and said that they didn't let him go speak. Whether it's true or not.
How true is that or not? I could just go on based on what I've
seen.
And I'm just saying, like, I don't think Lage is gonna make a change that drastic. I think we're riding a good wave right now, and Otamendi has messed up on a few plays, a little whiffs here and there, and we all have gotten frustrated with him. And I wouldn't agree with making a change at this point, because I think it ruffles too many feathers in the locker room as well. And that's one thing that you don't want to do, especially if you have good chemistry going in the locker room as well. But I feel like Di Maria could fill in the job and do just as good and just be just as a good, capable captain for Benfica as Otamendi has. And I can argue that he has done, from what I've seen on the outside, he's done more than Otamendi has. Just my.
He's not even. I was just thinking. Our second captain is Tino.
Yeah, Tino probably, yeah.
Right? Tino?
Probably the quietest guy on the team.
Seriously. Yeah, has Di Maria even captained the team this year?
I don't know.
I don't
He
know.
might have. Maybe those of you in the chat can confirm. I'm almost positive Benfica's current captain list is definitely Otamendi, and I think Tino is second.
And then
Tony
probably
has
Freddie
captained
third.
the team as well.
I've seen Tony, but that was last
Freddie
year. Wasn't
has, might have been. Tony has as well. Cesar da Silva says, Mariculo Umberto Quid, shell plenty of captains who were quiet and not loud. That's fine. And again, I agree. I obviously we're not old enough to have seen these guys play. But we've seen videos and read stories about all of them. And again, you don't need to, right? People spoke really highly of João Mario, for example. People say he was like the ideal personality to have in the locker room because he was really good with the youth. Players really respected him. Players leaned on him a lot, right? But he didn't. I mean, when I think of João Mario, I also don't think about a guy that's going to grab your team by the scruff of the neck when shit gets tough and, try to lead you forward on the field. Leaders lead in different ways. That's just the profile that I think of. Right. But if we think back on Benfica's captains, just say over the last decade, I think Otamendi's probably the one that's completely out of the mold of any of them, right? Because I mean, Benfica historically just hasn't been a club that has that type of player.
Yeah.
Right. So I think he's
was pretty
fair. Apart from him,
was
that's probably the only one that would like vocal, right? You had the PZs, the Simões, Cardozo, Javi.
I just feel like Luizão was such a captain for so long that I don't remember too many. Like unless he didn't play, there was a different captain. But I just felt like he was always a captain.
Yeah, and then Almeida, right? Like
And
those are all
Almeida
guys that are pretty quiet. But yeah, I wanted to get you guys' thoughts
Nico
on
Gaetan,
whether Nico, another Salvio. SLBS says today, would you trade Morato for Otamendi?
That's a good question.
I would. I still would.
I would.
I think Otamendi brings us. No, you're saying you would keep Morato? Jay?
I would trade Morato for Otamendi. I would.
Oh, okay. You'd prefer to keep Otamendi today?
No, I would trade Morato for Otamendi. Like
So
I would trade. I would want Morato. Like I would want to trade Morato.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like I would want Morato back.
You'd rather Morato.
You'd want Morato over Otamendi.
Kenny, would you?
Yeah.
Oh man. I still view him as a younger.
I don't even know what Morato's doing.
I still viewed Morato as kind of a younger version of Otamendi. I feel like Morato could have evolved into an Otamendi, but he did have a bad run of form towards the end of his stay here. So I don't know.
Which wasn't entirely his fault.
Yeah, he had a bad share of
situation.
Yeah.
Dude, he got like if you look back, he was like the next guy up for like 5 years, and he just never got the opportunity, and then they stuck him in left back.
He had the profile, like that.
Yeah,
I just feel like he got the shit out of the stick at Benfica overall.
But I mean, he's also not playing at Nottingham Forest, so he's played 77 minutes in 6 matches. He just played 12 minutes against Ipswich, and he didn't come in against Arsenal or Newcastle. He wasn't in the squad versus West Ham, and the most he's played in one match was 18 minutes. He's played 12, 18, 12, 8, 18, 9.
It's tough to break into the Premier League, even at a smaller club.
Correct. It's not easy, but curious to see if he's actually able to establish himself or if he's another one that kind of just kicks around, right? Like I was talking to Bill this weekend, like all they say is like he went to Nottingham, got kicked out of there. He went to Newcastle, and like now he doesn't even sit on the bench. Like it's crazy to me. I didn't think he was the best, but I didn't think he was the worst. And the fact that like he's not even able to grab a spot or at least on the bench, is wild. But yeah, I personally would prefer Otamendi today than Morato. 1, because I think Otamendi offers us different things. 2, because if we have Morato, I think it also would have potentially blocked Tomas and Tony who I think is the likely center pairing for next season. But I am also curious to understand, and somebody mentioned it today in our WhatsApp, is Tony really doing that bad in practice that he's not able to get a shot? Or is it basically he's not going to touch Otamendi, so it's like, all right, you've got Araujo or Tony, and you can't take Araujo out right now because he's playing really well, right? So it's like you got
he's riding the hot hand.
spot. Yeah.
I would feel kind of shaky having those two younger kids at center back. I don't know, like even though Otamendi has had his fair share of mistakes, I still feel pretty confident with him back there overall. Like I'd feel more confident than starting Tony and Thiago Araujo.
Tomas, yeah, I agree.
Tomas,
I agree that
I always call him Thiago.
That I agree that we talked about it last year too, right? Like Tony playing alongside Otamendi makes him a different player than maybe because you've got that leader next to you, that guidance, right? Two young kids who know each other well, they know the club well, right? But like it could go well and it could go really wrong.
These two kids have had a good start to their careers because of being paired up with Otamendi? Like, is that's part of that Otamendi leadership and guidance, right? I do think that. I do think they've made them better players by playing next to Otamendi.
See, I'm going to go the opposite way. I would have loved to see the two kids start.
And I think we will see them.
I just think, like, Tony has played, like, the last 2.5 years nonstop. Lost his spot to Tomas Araujo. I think Tomas Araujo is a stud. I may be the only one. I think he's better than Tony.
I agree with you that.
And I think that he's going to be he's probably not going to stick around Benfica too long, in my opinion. I think some teams are going to be calling in pretty soon on him. I do think if you I mean, I just finished saying I wouldn't change Tony. I wouldn't change anything about the lineup, but if you are going to make that change, I wouldn't mind it. Like, if you get to sit Otamendi, I wouldn't mind seeing the two kids play, see what they do. But I think right now you kind of do need that leadership back in that back line. The experience, I guess I would say.
Yeah, I think moving that piece right now is high risk, low reward, in my opinion. Because high risk in the sense of like, great, it could work well, right? But if it doesn't work out, not only do you fuck the two kids, right, mentally, but then you've got a world champion sitting on the bench that now you just fucking created shit tons of waves.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, I feel like we're in a situation where unless he gets hurt or is suspended, we more than likely are not going to see them paired together unless it's like, a Tasa game, a lower level opponent, or something of that nature. But in the current state, I don't see him making that change or even feeling the need to make that change right now.
Yeah.
Just to close this game out. So Benfica is now 9 points, 14th. We are in the playoff space. So the playoff space is 9 to 16th. Liverpool's in first, 5 wins out of 5. Monaco dropped to 8th. So the top 8 that are currently straight through are Liverpool, Inter, Barcelona, Dortmund, Atalanta, Leverkusen, Arsenal, and Monaco. The playoff
is it 9 to 24?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, 9 to 24. The 17 to 24 are unseeded.
Yeah.
The 9 to 16 are seeded. Seeded right now are Aston Villa, Sporting Brest, Lille, Bayern Munich, Benfica, Atleti, and Milan. Unseeded Manchester City, PSV, Juventus, Celtic, Feyenoord, Club Brugge, Dinamo Zagreb, and last in this unseeded is Real Madrid.
Two big unseededs there.
Right underneath it. Who's underneath them?
And then out of the equation right now, you've got PSG, Shakhtar, Stuttgart, Sparta Prague, Sturm Graz, Girona, Red Star Belgrade, Salzburg, Bologna, Leipzig, Bratislava, and Young Boys. I would say
how crazy is that?
I would say obviously PSG is a huge surprise. Yeah. Real Madrid being in the last slot is a huge surprise. Manchester City is a big surprise. I would even say Atleti and Bayern not being in the top 8 after 5 games is a big surprise. But quickly before we move on to the Arouca game, Kenny, do you like this new format?
Oh, dude, I was gonna ask you this question because
now that we see, and we saw it in the group chat, right? And that's what I thought about it. But let's just tackle that now. And for those of you,
and
in the
we
chat,
talked
let us
about it
know your thoughts.
at dinner. I know you guys weren't there, but
Yep.
I do like the format. I think it's more, and maybe it's just me, but I think it's more competitive. I think it gives you more flavor of more teams versus just playing the same home and away. Yep. Some folks may think it's a disadvantage that you get to play. You might get the draw of playing tough opponents away, and you'd rather play them at home. Vice versa. I mean, it's the luck of the draw. But I think the overall format, I like it. I think it's competitive. I also think this is almost kind of like a format of like the Super League that everyone wanted to kind of talk about, right? I mean, you don't have. I mean, yeah, I guess you do have most of the best in the world, but I like it. Yeah, I much rather prefer this than the old format.
Jay, what do you think? You're muted.
You're muted.
To me, it's still too early to tell overall. I kind of agree with SLB on the chat. I think one thing I can take out of is there's a lot of surprises in games. Like you said, Real Madrid in 24th place, PSG not even in the top 24. You see some of the big clubs in the middle of the standings overall. I think it's a little bit more difficult when you have to play different teams instead of the same three teams home and away. You see them one time, maybe you can catch them the second time at home, or vice versa. This is, you got one shot against Atletico, see what you got, and you're playing at home. Then you get your result. Atletico can't come back after we beat them 4-0. Now they can't beat us. Like, we can't go to their stadium and they have like some type of revenge. So I think it's a little bit more difficult in that aspect. But I was a big fan of how Champions League was run overall. But I'm giving it a shot. So far, I think it's been a lot more exciting so far overall. But I still think that you kind of have to give it a couple more seasons over to see how it all pans out. But I do agree with what Kenny said. It's kind of brings like that Super League that they all wanted to have overall on that.
I feel like with the group stage format, a lot of teams would, especially the smaller teams, right? They would play for certain draws, right? Like if you're home, or even like Benfica, like we saw plenty of times, like we would go away and play for a draw. We weren't playing to get the W and just wait to come home, or finish the home game and try to get the W then, right? Where this is, like you said, right? Like you have one shot at Atletico. You're gonna give it your all. Like you're not gonna get them again away or vice versa, right? Like, so you got to go balls to the wall because you've got bigger opponents afterwards. So I just like that. It almost feels like, to me, you're playing to win every game versus you're playing that home away matchup where it's like, all right, I know I'm gonna lose against Man City, so I'm just gonna sit back and hope for a draw. And then, so I don't know. That's my opinion, at least.
No, I agree. I think, right, like if you look at PSG's first 5 games, like they've played Bayern, Atleti, PSV, Arsenal, and Girona in their first 5. Like, and there's other teams that have had, big profile games like that. Real Madrid played Milan, Dortmund, Lille, Stuttgart, and Liverpool. Right? Like, and typically in the previous format, it was 4 teams. If you're in pot 1, right, a Real Madrid, a PSG would have gotten like 1 decent team, right, and then 3 shit teams or 2 shit teams, right? So it's just like, I feel like this format opens it up a little bit in the sense of like the big clubs can't hide as much, right? Like you're going to be like you guys are going to have to go up against the big dogs much earlier in the competition, than in previous years.
Yeah.
And I do like the fact that the teams that fall out of Champions League now no
Don't
longer fall
have them
into Europa
Mhm.
League,
Mhm.
right? So I think for the teams that aspire to win a European title and they're in the Europa League, right? For them, it's like, great. Like we get out of the group stage, right? And then all of a sudden, all the fucking big teams or the bigger teams come out of Champions League, right? And then they come in and dump here because, resource wise, most of them have more money than the clubs that are in Europa League, right? Whereas now it's like, all right, like we're in this competition. It's just us, right? We
Yeah.
don't have to worry about these bigger teams coming in and trying to flush us out. So I feel like that also creates for the Europa League and the Conference League a little bit more motivation of like, great, we're gonna have a really good group stage, and then we're gonna get fucked when all the other teams fall into our competition. So,
Right.
so I
Can
do
you guys
like
hear me
that.
all right?
Yeah, we can hear you fine. Your video
I
is
know I'm
freezing, but your audio is
yeah.
perfect. So don't worry about it.
Okay. As long as the audio is fine. So
Yeah, your audio is good.
and to your point, like we'd always more times than not, you'd see the out of group stages, you'd see the same matchups year after year after year.
Yeah.
And I get it. Champions League, you want the best of the best.
Yes.
But I also think like for a Benfica, right? Like this should you should be able to get some bigger teams maybe knocked out of the top pairings, right? And so you might have a better chance of advancing in the later rounds and maybe get a surprise here or there instead of the same winners time and time again, the same matchups year after year. It's not to say like, oh, I want a diluted Champions League. Like, no, the best should still be there, but I also think like those mid-tier clubs, the Ajax, the Benficas, we should have a better opportunity of getting further in this competition if we play our cards right and we win the games that we need to. So
yeah.
So I pose a question to you guys with this.
What?
Do you think that we will finally have like another Porto or a team like that win the Champions League now with this new format? Because this year, I feel like there's some surprises and there's some teams up there.
It's still going to be tough.
There are,
Right,
but
but
it's
even
still, like Kenny. I think that again, there's a reason why no team out of the Big Five has won the Champions League since Porto. But I think could it happen? Yes. Is it likely to happen? No. It really takes like the stars really have to align. You have to get a really good draw, right? You have to have basically a near perfect competition for a team outside of the Big Five to be able to win a competition like this, just because again, the resources that you're going up against, right? And don't forget, like we're at this phase right now where clubs are going through phases. You're going to go through a January transfer window, right? By the time those later phases come in this competition, teams are, these bigger teams that have shit tons of resources are much more well-oiled, right? They have more options on their bench. They have more resources to go and grab. So all of that I feel makes it difficult. I think this makes it more likely that the big clubs don't get a free pass into the next round. I think that's for me the biggest change in this first sample of it is right. Like when you had the groups of four, you typically had the teams from pot one and pot two in first and second place, right? It was just basically who was falling where. Whereas I think in this format, you got a Real Madrid after 5 match days sitting on the last spot of the playoff, right? You got PSG sitting on the outside, right? Yeah. You've got, a Dortmund and Atlanta, a Leverkusen, a Monaco in the top 8, right? And all that can change in the final 3 match days. But to answer your question, could it happen? Yes. I don't think it changes the probability from the previous formats. I think, if anything, that scenario for me is more likely to happen in this initial phase than further down the line. I don't know if you agree, Kenny.
Yeah, no, 100%. I totally agree with what you said.
While we're on it, before we jump to Arouca, let's just close off the Champions League. So we got Bologna next at home next week. And then we got Barcelona at home and Juventus at home. The Barcelona game's in late January. And then the Juventus game away is the last match day in this phase, and I believe that's in February. If we beat Bologna, who are 33rd with 1 point. Puts us on 12 points. I think 12 points is going to be more than enough to secure us a spot in the next round. Whether that's seeded or unseeded, we'll find out. Because currently right now, 3rd and 4th place have 12 points. Second and first have 15 and 13. So I think a win against Bologna puts us in a really good spot, regardless of what happens against Barcelona and Juventus. But Kenny, how do you like our chances now, having come away with that win in Monaco?
Yeah. So say that again. We have Bologna away.
We got Bologna at home next week. And then we have Barcelona at home. Then we have Juventus away in the last match day.
Juventus away. Well,
Barcelona's going through a bad phase right now after a pretty hot start to the league as well.
And I don't think Juventus is that strong as previous years.
I think we have,
just having Bologna next at home, I think, and the fact that they're in the dumps, right?
Yeah.
But again, we thought the same about Feyenoord, and then we got our asses handed to us.
Yeah, we need to take care of business for sure, because we can't go in thinking like, oh, we've got this one in the bag, because then you still got 2 competent opponents afterwards. It just shows how much the Monaco 3 points was very important. Again, I think at some point in that game we're like, damn, we just need 1 out of this, but the 3 points are very valuable, and I agree with you. I think that we should move. It was a step in the right direction in getting a place to move forward in the competition.
Just quickly, Jay, before I pass it to you, I wasn't at the dinner, but Kenny, I know that the conversation that Paul had brought up was wanting to play the better teams away and the weaker teams at home. Just to give you guys an example, Bologna at home. Bologna played 5 games, 2 of which were away. They played Aston Villa away and Liverpool away, right? 2 opponents that you would have assumed they would lose to. At home, they played Shakhtar, Monaco, and Lille, and lost 4 or 5 of those games.
Right.
Right. So
I didn't understand the argument. I didn't understand the argument, because you need to win away, right? You need to win away. So knowing that you need to at least pull off a win away, I would rather pull those wins off against a weaker opponent and take my chances with a harder opponent at home. But he was thinking the opposite, which to me doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, I looked at their previous games and I thought that was interesting because it was aligned a lot with the scenario that he had brought up. And just for context, Jay, Paul had mentioned.
I don't understand how Paul even thinks that's logical.
And they won. And Sporting.
Correct. They beat Man City and then they lost to Arsenal. But his thought process was he would rather play the big games away from home, expecting to lose them, versus to play the Man Cities, the Arsenals, the Real Madrids at home.
To me, you want those games at home, so you got the crowd behind you for the extra juice going through your game. Like, you get the
that's what we all said. He was. I think he was the only one that said the opposite.
Oh yeah, he fought it. He fought it pretty hard.
Drinking a couple Tito's and like soda waters or something.
That might have been the case. What do you think about our chances now, given the game against Monaco?
I think I said it in the chat. I think so. First of all, I thought there was only 6 games, and then you came with the bombshell that there's 8, and I was like, "What the fuck?" Because I was like, "Yo, we have a good shot to make it in the top 8. All we gotta do is beat Bologna. We could probably be in the top 8." But I do think that regardless, I think, like Kenny said, we can't kind of look ahead. You got to take care of business one game at a time. I think if we get the 3 points, which I'm expecting us to get against Bologna, I think even after that, I think we still steal some points, regardless of it's either against Barcelona or Juventus. I don't know if it's one or maybe when we sneak a win. I do think that we pass. I'm hoping we get in the top 8, but I think we're going to fall in the middle somewhere, probably in the top 16. So we will get that like seeding wise. But I foresee us moving on, but soccer, it can change from day to day. So I'm thinking positive. I'm hoping the team taking the game one game at a time and just focus on beating Bologna at home and getting those 3 points, because that's the most crucial game going forward.
Yeah, that Bologna game gives us, I think, takes a little bit of pressure off of us with Barcelona coming to town in match day 7.
Yeah, I just hope that they play, even if we do win, we just play with the same tenacity and, you know what I mean? Like the same fire that we do play with all these other games. I don't want us to like, oh, we beat Bologna, we're all set, and then we get Barca and we get smacked
Yeah,
in the face
no.
5-0. Like
Yeah, I
I
don't
want them
think
to
you
like
can
treat it like it's like do or die regardless.
because if we beat Bologna, we got 12 points. Then I think we have a legitimate shot at potentially the top 8.
Yeah,
Top 8's important. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Top
Like because
eight, you
you're
get a
right,
free
you're
bye,
through
isn't
to the
it?
round of 16,
Yeah,
right?
Right.
Whereas the other teams they have to still battle to get in there. So a win against Bologna really puts us in a good spot, and again gives us a little bit more motivation to like shit. We can take one more step if we really put our minds to it. So I think we're on the same page in terms of feeling hopeful here and optimistic. Just quickly, I want to shout out to everyone that's in the chat. SLBS Vespa he says last time I was here, live stream, Benfica was deep in muddy waters. Welcome back.
We got out
We've
of
been
that
fighting
quicksand.
those muddy waters. Yeah, we're out of that quicksand, and we're hopefully cruising at a good altitude now. We already talked. Says the Silva Pedro Vieira says hi guys, good evening, welcome back, Pedro. And SLBS says first season with Roger. Had we not lost Enzo, we would have made it to the finals 100%. I think we were in a good spot, right? But again, I think the draw ended up helping us, right? We ended up with Inter Milan, right, where we could have ended up on the other side with Manchester City. So that's what I'm saying, right? Like I feel like everything needs to align. And lo and behold, Manchester City won that year, right? If I'm not mistaken, they won in the final against Inter. So again, lo and behold, like you need those things to align to give you a better chance. Not to say that an outside top 5 team can't beat a top 5 team, but it's just it lessens the probability because of all the context that goes around to the game. Pedro Vieira says beat Bologna, beat Barcelona, and draw Juve.
I'm down.
I think this is what's going to happen. In all honesty, I don't think I said. When we did our original predictions, I had said that I think we could take 1 point from Barcelona, but that was off the back of their start to the season. Like they were guns blazing. I think they were like 6-7 points up on Real Madrid, and now they're like 1. They've had a decent, degradation to their form, and I feel like they've come back down to earth a little bit. Again, between now and the time that we face them, things can change. But based on current moment, I think if we beat Bologna, I think we have a very good chance of taking 3 points from Barcelona in that game at home. And then away to Juve, who knows? But I think these next 2 games at home, I think could be really important for us. Let's move on quickly to Arouca. I don't think there's much to say about this game, but I did want to touch on kind of a more encompassing topic here is, so Benfica goes to Arouca, wins 2-0. A match that was, if we were frustrated with the performance at times against Monaco yesterday, was really frustrating. The players just looked completely leggy, lacking really that fire and that drive. It almost felt like they were a little bit fatigued, but also kind of in the mindset like, we don't have to get out of second gear. Like the result will come. It's just a matter of time. And fortunately, we were able to get that own goal in the first half, which I think maybe alleviated some of that stress. Starting 11 was exactly the same that we saw in Monaco. Trubin, according to Goal Point, had the highest rating with a 7.4. I'll start with this topic here. Trubin.
Oh, okay.
7.4. I'll start with this topic here. Jay, I'll start with you. After the kind of run of games that we've had, not just after this recent international break, but right, like if we go back to the beginning of the season, 3 and 3 days, 4 and 4 days, very little practice, international breaks, come back, pick back up, right? And you're constantly going in this system. The game against Monaco, like, was super taxing. Not just from a trip, mentally, physically, and then you end up in Arouca. Bruno Lage actually made a comment after the game yesterday and said he felt like it took us longer to get to Arouca than it did for us to get to Monaco. But in terms of when you contextualize all of that, does it surprise you that we came upon a game like that where it's like, the players are basically kind of at that limit, right? And we came away with the win, which was the most important piece. But were you entirely surprised by what you saw on the field? And would you have expected him to make a few changes to maybe freshen up the team?
So I feel like Bruno Lage has always kind of stuck to his starting 11, even like previous years before. I thought he always kind of kept like the same lineup. I kind of agree where you mentioned you could have made a couple changes here and there. I felt like the team did need that overall, and I feel like he realized after the game, he's like, yeah,
Yep.
probably should have made a couple changes. But I feel like this break, this week, like the no midweek game is going to be crucial for them. They're going to love it. It's going to rest off some of the guys. They're going to get their legs back underneath them. I agree with. I mean, I don't know what way you're going, but I do agree with there should have been some changes, and I think the coach realized it. But I mean, when I saw the lineup, I was like, all right, he's sticking with his guns. He's going with his typical lineup to see what he can get. I thought he made subs a little bit earlier than usual, bringing some guys in like in the 60th minute. That kind of helped kind of freshen up some of the players that were gassed. But you could see it like as the game went on, they were not into it as much as they were against the Champions League. Obviously, it was kind of like a letdown game or looking ahead type of game where they just wanted to get by the game, just get by it and just get the result. And hopefully luckily they did. It wasn't Benfica's best performance overall, but I was happy that they got the W. And we gained some momentum in the league with Sporting losing. So it was an overall good weekend, but I think, like you mentioned, I think Bruno Lage realized that some switches in the starting lineup should have happened.
Kenny, do you think, just piggybacking off of what Jay said, given the fact that Sporting had just lost, right? They hadn't lost at home, I think is like 33 matches in a row. Right. And with everything that's happening and I want to kind of dive into that a little bit after this question, but Sporting just loses, right? You didn't start the season well, right? In 4 matches, you dropped points in 2 of them to start the season. Got a new coach. Things kind of get flipped upside down. You're in a good run of form now. I thought that this game could have potentially been a banana skin, right? Where it's like Sporting lost, right? You kind of like get hyped up and you trip and fall on your face. You just come back off a Champions League match. I know that there are teams, and this is historical. You can go back and look at it. Whereas there's a lot of teams that, and Pedro mentions it here, tired legs, but also changing the chip from Champions League to the league. A lot of teams struggle with that, is like that motivation and that hype of the big Friday night lights or Wednesday or Tuesday night lights in this case, right? And then you come back and you go play in Arouca, who's second to last in the league away, right? It kind of like deflates that bubble, and it's just like it almost takes that motivation out of you. So I felt like it was definitely a potential banana skin match. And with that, I would have expected a different reaction in the sense of like, I would have thought being able to capture 3 points and kind of take a step forward, I would have expected Benfica to come out guns blazing and put the game to rest, in the first half, right? And then second half, just kind of coast and control the game. We didn't see that. Did you expect that, or are you not surprised like Jay in terms of what you saw?
No, I absolutely expected that because we are chasing the leader, and every game that we can gain points is important, especially when they slip up against a smaller opponent. Even though Santa Clara is 4th place, but you'd still like those when that happens. I mean, you always expect them to come out and like, hey, this is our chance to come up the leaderboard. So it was, I didn't catch the first half. I saw a little bit of the second half, and it wasn't much different than the first. It wasn't the best game. The results will matter. It could have been one of those games, like you said. What do they say in football, Jay? When the
look ahead game. It was like a look ahead.
No. Like there's another word. There's another term for it. I can't think of it. It'll come to me. But I'm just glad that didn't happen. Right. I'm just glad that we got the job done. I am starting to trust a lot more than how Roger was reading the games. I'm trusting more and more how Bruno Lage is is reading the games. I am a type that likes a core starting team and starting them time and time again. These guys are pros. They know that they play every 3 to 4 days. Like it's common now, and they train for that. I believe more in doing subs early or at halftime if you need to make a change. And I think, and I believe that Bruno Lage is doing it better. Is doing better at reading the game and making the right subs at the right times to freshen the team up. Like this would be a game that Schmidt would have waited still to the 70th, 80th minute to make his first sub. So it's encouraging to see that type of reading the game and knowing what needs to be changed in order to bring another step, another gear into the game. So it wasn't the best showing. It was a tough match. But look, this is the grind of the season where we are, right? These type of games are always a grind. Like this chunk of the season sucks. It's it is what it is. You just got to battle through it.
But there's again, and I had posted an article about it after the Monaco game where, I mean, we can go back and talk about how many games Sporting grinded out last year, right? And scored game winners in the final 5, 6, 7 stoppage time minutes, right? And
That's
it was like,
right,
champions, right? If you want to be champions, those are the games you can't let slip away, right? And we pulled it off against Monaco. We didn't have a great performance, far from it, against Arouca, but we got the result. And it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? And in the context of the 60 games that we play in the entire season, if we're champions and we lift silverware and we have 10 of those games throughout the season where like we play just absolute garbage, but we come away with the result, sign me up. I'll take it every year, right? There's no team. I mean, look,
there's
at
always going to
City.
be. It doesn't matter if you're Man City or Real. There's always going to be.
That's what I'm saying.
Like that, no
Real
what.
Madrid went through a bad phase, right? Even now, I mean, Manchester City hasn't won in 6, 7 games, right? And like, look at the resources they have, right? So it's like no team is bulletproof. No team plays at a high level, the entire season. Liverpool right now is flying, right? But I would be willing to bet that they're also going to go through a lull at some point throughout the season, right? Because matches come thick and fast. All it takes is one negative result. All it takes is one injury, right? And things change drastically. So we got the results, which was the most important piece. I wanted two quick topics here. I don't know if you guys watched the interview after the match. Portuguese media being the Portuguese media. They asked Álvaro Carreras about his future at Benfica, considering this is his first year. But of course, they're asking those questions. And his response was, they asked him, do you plan on staying? And he said, isso logo se verá, mas estou contente aqui, assinei por muitos anos. How do you guys read that response? The isso logo se verá leaves me a bit like, is he going to jump at the first opportunity, or is he really committed to, I'm here to stay, I'm here to play, I'm committed. If stuff happens, it happens. But how do you interpret that statement? Isso logo se verá, mas estou contente aqui, assinei por muitos anos.
I think it's just typical answer.
Yeah, I think he's the type of player that if he gets the contract or to go to like back to Man United or something, he'll take the ticket. He'll go. That's just my opinion. That's just how I just feel like that type of response is what we've heard from Enzo. It's from what we heard from all these other players, and then they see the money that they're gonna get and see you later. Like sometimes they just can't say no to the cash. I mean, I don't blame them. I would probably take the contract too.
Yeah, it was.
It's
sure how to interpret it.
It is. He's playing both sides, right? Like he doesn't want to say something to upset the fan base here, but he's also like setting himself up. Like, okay, if someone does come calling and I jump, like it's not like I committed myself here, So it's your standard answer.
The other question is, Benfica gains 3 points. We're now 5 points back. We have the makeup match against Nacional on the 19th. And then we go to Sporting after Christmas. So looking ahead right now, we have We have Vitória this weekend for the league. We've got Bologna for the Champions League. And then we have 4 league matches, 3 previous to Sporting. We've got AVS away, Nacional away, which is the makeup, Studiel at home, and then Sporting away. Again, we're 5 points back with the makeup game in hand. If we win the game against Nacional, we're 2 back. Obviously, depending on how we do against Vitória and AVS. Until then, Sporting's changes. It's not what was paradise and the most amazing situation the world
Rainbows
of football
and
has ever
unicorns.
seen. A month ago has now turned into an absolute hellhole, and fans are not happy. Now I saw a ton of articles today criticizing the president and how he's an amateur. But what I want to ask you guys is, do you feel right now, given the context of both situations on either side of the Segunda Circular, how are you feeling right now in terms of Benfica being able to, by the time we get to that Sporting match away, do you feel like Benfica could have leapfrogged Sporting, or could that match be a match where if we win, we leapfrog Sporting? Kenny?
So, I mean, one team's trending up, the other one's trending down. I mean, the Earth aligned. I mean, the Earth rotates, right? The Earth aligned for Sporting during this run, but those stars don't align forever. And we knew at some point that Amorim was going to go his separate way, and it happened before the season was over. So I think that was great for us. I truly believe that Sporting is going to pay big time for that. And all it really takes is like a loss to Santa Clara for everything to just unwind. It will happen quick. So do I think we should be able to leapfrog them by the end of the month? But I also...
Who does Sporting have?
Sporting plays Moreirense away, who just beat Porto in the Taça. They go away to Bruges for the Champions League. They play Boa Vista at home. They play Santa Clara at home for the Taça de Portugal again. And then they go to Gil Vicente away before they play Benfica. So I think this Moreirense away game this weekend is going to be really tough because of just the situation. Fans aren't happy with the president. Doesn't seem like they trust the coach.
2-game losing streak.
Yeah. But carry on, Kenny.
No, I was just going to say we have to take care of business as well, right? Obviously.
Correct.
And
we depend on ourselves.
Absolutely. But the word I was thinking about earlier was trap game. I do think there could potentially be a trap game here between Nacional and what is this?
AVS, yeah.
AVS. Yeah. So 2 away games there back to back. What? Couple of days apart, right? Those are
4 days.
4 days apart. So that could be, off of a Champions League game as well. So I think we just got to take care of business during those 2 away games. I'm not worried at home. I think we'll take care of business at home. But I don't want to lose points away to one of those 2. And then I think if all goes well, we'll be ready to play Sporting and take care of business then and let them burn their stadium down.
So do you think that we're gonna catch them before the game?
No, if we leapfrog Sporting on the 29th, they're starting 2025 in a shitstorm.
No, but what I'm asking you is, by the time we play them,
if we're already there,
we play them. Do you think we're already past them, or we have the opportunity to pass them still?
No, I think
that game against
that game has the opportunity to pass them. That will be
okay. So you don't think at kickoff we're still behind them
by a point?
2.
Okay.
2.
Jay.
2. It's tough to predict the future, but I do predict, like Oscar likes to say, Sporting is reaching Christmas time and it's starting to fall off the cliff a little bit. I agree with you. The Moreirense game is going to be tough for them overall. I'm going to go with Kenny. I think we're still going to be behind, but we're going to win that game against Sporting. And I'm getting ahead of myself, but I think we're going to leapfrog them then if we are going to. I think they're going to take care of business, even though I think this next game for them is going to be tough. We have a tough one too at home. Vitória is no pushover either. I feel like we always kind of struggle with them more away than at home. But I do agree with that. Two road games, and the Madeira game could be a trap game, a makeup game. But I think that we, at the end of the day, we're probably both of us are going to take care of business. I'm hoping Sporting Street continues to go downhill. Mike, we hung out Friday, and you kind of predicted the scenario that happened over the weekend. So that was that's the first thing I thought of when you told me that Sporting lost. I was like, wait, what? I was like, pretty much how you predicted it. But I do think it's going to be tough. I think Sporting's still a tough team, still tough, but they need to break out of this losing skid. I'm hoping they don't, but I feel like they will. And I think it's going to kind of lead down to that game against Sporting and Benfica, and that's who's going to take over first place.
What a way to finish the year.
I know. I said it.
Are they our last game
of the year? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and then we start the year with Braga at home for the Taça, or Braga at home for the league, and Braga at home for the Taça back to back to start the year.
Holy shit!
Home, huh? That's yeah.
So I said it at the Portuguese club on Friday when we hung out. That I think by the time Benfica gets to Alvalade, we'd be less than 5 points away. I think after what happened this weekend, I think Sporting is in trouble. I really do. Moreirense away is going to be a very difficult match for them. Typically, they're a tough team to play away. Porto just lost to them in the Taça away. They're not in a good run of form. Again, what I had said at the Portuguese club, Jay, was even if you don't move pieces in this team, right? The team is the team, right? But having Ruben Amorim in your locker room to bounce back from a negative result and having João Pereira in your locker room to bounce back from a negative result are two different worlds, right? You've got a manager who had experience at the top level. He had coached Braga, he had coached Casapia, right? And then you've got a manager who was in the third division, right? He's never even coached a second division game, right? And now all of a sudden he gets thrown into the Wolves, gets thumped by Arsenal, loses at home for the first time in 33 matches against Santa Clara. They'd never beaten Sporting away, right? And they pull that off. And now with all this chaos, right, you go away to Moreirense. I think it's just a terrible situation for him. I think they drop points again this weekend. And
that would be nice.
I also think that, and I said it when they appointed him, I don't think he lasts till the end of January. I honestly don't.
JP?
I think there's just, I don't think there's going to be conditions for him.
So let
if
me
he drops
ask you
points
this
this weekend, they are.
Who does he go to after?
I think Sporting's going to go get Abel Ferreira.
So let me ask you this.
Brasileirão's over in 2 weeks. Go ahead.
So are they upset? I mean, they didn't really have a choice with Amorim. Amorim made the decision to leave. They didn't really have much of a say.
They're upset with the president's choice. Correct. Yeah. Because the president made it sound like, if you go read some of the articles today, the president was like, basically, in other words, like, this is now a well-oiled machine, right? It almost was like people are criticizing and saying, like, he almost made it sound like whoever was conducting the train is going to be able to just figure it out because we put all the pieces in place, right? And now people are like, if it was that easy, they would just have AI manage Sporting, right? Like if it was, if everything was in place and functioning, right? You don't need whoever you throw at it is going to figure it out, right? And I think
why even throw a coach? Why even hire a coach?
Correct. And then the way he positioned it of like, oh, we've been preparing for this situation for 2 years when he was appointed the B team coach, blah, blah, blah. Right. And now they're on a negative run of form. And I think there's a ton of heat on him, and didn't help. João Pereira in his press conference after Arsenal made a comment that he then forgot he made, and he said something along the lines of like "foi erro de casting," basically. And I don't know if he was saying he picked the wrong players or he was the wrong choice, because then they asked him in the presser after that, and he was like, "I didn't say that," and they were like, "Yep, you did, verbatim. You said that." He was like, "Oh, maybe I did, but I don't remember saying that." So it was like, so it's like, and there's rumors that like the players in the locker room aren't happy with him and don't trust him, right? So it's like you go from a Ruben Amorim, right, and who's a very good communicator, had experience. Now you go to this guy who hasn't even coached second division game, right? And you're just like, your whole your season gets tossed up in the air. So I'm going to put that out here. I think they drop points again this weekend, and shit's going to get really chaotic for them. And then they have to go to Belgium to play Club Brugge, which nonetheless won't be an easy travel either way.
He doesn't look comfortable. He doesn't look the part.
No, he does not. So I think by the time Benfica, with that said, I think by the time Benfica gets to Sporting, I think we're ahead of them because of the situation that's going on right now. Because if they drop points this weekend and we win, right, we can cut it down to, and then we have the makeup game. I'm not saying that we are going to win out from now till then, but I think Sporting's in for a bumpy ride between now and then. And if they go into that game behind us or even tied with us, dude, you guys know Sporting fans as well as I know Sporting fans. Them dudes is going to be shaking in their boots. So
I can already picture it now. I have a question off top, just like hypothetical. What if at the end of the season we win the league? We go pretty far. What does that say for Rui Costa? Is he, like, we were saying that he's done? Would that change people's minds? Because he hired Lage to take over, brought him a championship. Like, I'm just playing hypothetical right now. Just like, what would you say?
I'll go first, Kenny. I personally think him picking Lage was the safest bet, right? Because he knows the house. He's been there before. He was available. He's probably also the cheaper bet, given the amount of money that they had invested in the squad, the amount of money they invested in Roger Schmidt. And if there was one thing that Benfica desperately needed more than anything else, tactics on the field, decisions, if there was one thing Benfica needed and had to have, was getting the fans behind the team again. Mm-hmm. And again, while he would have been most likely the cheaper option, the most readily available option, when it comes to that must have, I think he was probably the only option, right? Because we could have gone to go get, there's rumors that I have a credible source that told me that Leonardo Jardim was the first option that they spoke to on the phone. He said no. Abel was another option, but the release clause was too high. There's rumors that Mark van Bommel, he gave an interview saying that Rui Costa asked him. Fatih Terim, the guy that coached Galatasaray and the Turkish national team, he was asked, and he's a good friend of Rui Costa. He coached him when he was at Milan or Fiorentina, and he said no. So I think if we were to come out at the end of the season and have won, obviously you have to applaud, right? Because he made the right decision. Doesn't erase, any of the less pleasant decisions that he's made in his tenure. But again, you have to applaud him. You have to applaud the coaching staff because they took on a ship 4 or 5 weeks into the season and were able to steady the ship. But yeah, I mean, I hope that in May we're having this conversation and we're talking about how he hit it straight on the head and we figured it out. Kenny, what do you think?
I'm just wondering, like, what people were thinking. Like, think now, like, because you don't hear that Rui Costa out, like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't hear too many.
Correct, because at the end of the day, what fans want is the ball to go in the net, right? It's always like that, and I feel like with every sport, right? Like, if you're winning, all the noise and all the shit that's not happening and not being done correctly takes a back seat.
It's non-existent.
Right? But when When you're not winning, then everything matters. Everything's bad. Everything sucks. Everyone sucks, right? It's like when you're riding that wave of like, we're winning, right? I mean, us as Benfica fans for, when Luis Fifieta was there and we went on a run of all those titles, right? There was, shady shit happening behind the curtain, right? But like, and most people knew, right? But like, we didn't care about it, whatever. Like, we're winning, right? Same thing with Porto fans, right? When Pinto da Costa did what he did, right? They were winning, right? And then when he walked out the door and lost the election and he left them $8,000 in the fucking bank, now they're like, holy shit. Well, yeah, holy shit. But while you were winning, it didn't matter, right? Now all of a sudden you're like, motherfucker, dude, he stole all our money. Yeah, exactly. Because when the ball's going in, nothing else matters. That's what fans care about. So just to end, regardless of how this season ends, I don't think, and from what I've been told, Rui Costa won't run for election again, regardless of how it pans out. So whether he wins, whether he has a successful season, whether he doesn't, I'm told that he's not going to run for re-election. So at the very least, he at least won't ride that momentum of, right, like, okay, I won, and then fans are going to be like, oh, he only won the elections because of, that's what I'm being told. Time will tell. But I just wanted to end it with that. Kenny, what do you think?
No, yeah, I mean, it's too early to tell, right? It is, he made a poor, he's still, in my opinion, made a poor decision to keep on Roger Schmidt, right? We started the season poorly. We could have started the season. He could have made a decision last year with the season with a new coach and not have had the shit start that we had. But if he makes up for it now with this decision, then he makes up for it. But yeah, it is what it is. I don't know. It doesn't change my mind on Rui Costa. Like, he's still my idol, whether he had a successful presidency or not. It doesn't change it for me. He won a championship. Hopefully he wins another one, and it'll be,
rides off into the sunset.
Yeah, rides off into the sunset. Exactly.
There you go.
He's probably tired of ripping butts and like in the back end.
Oh,
he's probably so much stress in that dude.
Smoking so many. We got to get him a vape or something.
He's old school.
All right, quickly, let me just run through some of these comments before we close it out. Pedro Rivera says maybe Rui Costa needs to renew his contract, raise his clause. He's talking about Carreras. The clause in terms of Manchester United can't change. So the agreement that we had with Manchester United is we paid $6 million for him, but they have a $20 million buyback option. His clause for anyone else.
Is it a certain amount of years, or they, no matter what, like they can go 4 years after and go get him?
From what I know, it's relevant to his current contract. I would assume that it's not as easy as them just extending his contract and basically voiding that, right? That would obviously be a stupid decision for Man United to allow something like that. So if Benfica wants to sell, Manchester United has the option to buy him for 20 million first, but Benfica has to want to sell. They just can't come and say, hey, we want him, we're going to give you 20 million and walk away. But they can't, that number can't change. I don't know the fine print in terms of how long that rides out. I would assume that's for the duration of his at least current contract. But yeah, it's not as easy as that. Oscar says Amorim will not find a left back that cheap anywhere. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think like how expensive left backs are. I guess 20 million maybe isn't too bad, I guess. Jean Paredes not ready. Should have coached the mid-table team first before Sporting. He's young and has thrown to the big league versus teams like Arsenal. Yeah, he went from playing the teams that Montalegre played last year in the league to Stade Valladolid against Arsenal, right? It's just like, talk about a huge shock in terms of preparation. And the B team that he was coaching wasn't in good form either in the third division. So it is what it is. Pedro says huge pressure on Sporting in the next game. For them, it's a must-win, 100% a must-win. Anything less than a win in that game is going to be chaos. A loss is absolutely going to be chaos. SLB says, the Sporting go for Conceição or Roger? I don't think either. Although I have seen Sporting fans after Amorim left say they wanted Conceição. I don't see it happening.
Nobody wants
Sergio Conceição's family were Sporting fans. He admitted that in an interview. he, I think, was a Sporting fan growing up, and then naturally he ended up at Porto, so that may have changed things. There's rumors this evening before we came on live that West Ham is potentially looking at Conceição because Lopetegui is probably heading out the door soon. He hasn't had a hot start to the league. And in terms of Roger, I also saw before we came on live that Leipzig had inquired with him, and he said he's not ready in the near future to return to coaching. That release clause. That release clause. Well, that release clause payment that he got from Benfica, I'm sure, also helped. Yeah, Oscar. All the hate from Oscar.
Yeah, Oscar broke him.
I don't think he's mentally ready to come back to the active.
Roger's downstairs in his basement throwing darts at Oscar's head.
I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. Pedro says Sporting still has a great starting squad, but the coach is key. See what happened to Benfica with Roger Schmidt and now Lage night and day. Yeah, I mean the coach plays a big part. Oscar says knock knock. I'm not sure what the heck that's related to.
That's a play joke.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, who's there? I don't know. That's it for tonight. Hopefully, we'll be back next week.
I got something. I got something real quick before. So I got to hear the story of these presuntos. You guys got to fill me in on what happened.
Yeah, so we got for the party. So those of you who are listening and haven't purchased your tickets for the Festa de Benfica, January 11th in Milford, Massachusetts, let us know. Send us a message if you're interested in sponsoring. We're looking to close those out also this week so I can get everything printed. But we have we'll have a raffle and an auction. And one of the auction items that I purchased this week was we were at the Portuguese Club on Friday, and Bernardino purchased this presunto with like a stand, and you can cut it. Comes with a nice knife. It's a Spanish presunto, and we were like, "Oh, nice, that's cool." And then he just decided to unbox it, and he just started slicing it up. Like it was almost like you have at the club. He was bartending, and it was almost like when you go through the duty free in Madrid. I don't know if you've been to the Madrid airport, but like they're slicing it there. It was literally like the same thing, like nice thin slices. He was just slicing it up, putting it on a napkin for us, drinking. And so we put in our orders with Bill through Costco, $100. You get the presunto, you get everything. It was a good presunto too. And we ordered 5 presuntos, 2 for me, 2 for Jay, and 1 for Oscar down in Florida. So we'll have one available in the raffle for the Festa de Benfica. So
it's those Costco Serrano hams.
Yeah, it was good.
That's a good deal.
Yeah, and it was nice.
Really good. It was really
we
really
had
good.
a couple beverages. We had Bernardino cutting presunto for like an hour.
Fucking Mike smoking everybody in foosball.
That too.
It was a good night.
Vespa also reminded me the Club World Cup draw is in 2 days. Thursday, I believe it is. They announced the pots today. I don't know if you guys saw the pots. Benfica's in pot 2.
We're in 2,
yeah. So we'll keep everyone posted. We'll post the results once those are live. But it'll be interesting to see. He says Oscar's in Florida. You could go to the academy, get some good insight. What academy? I don't know. I'm not sure what academy. Oh, Benfica was just there. That's probably what he's talking about. Benfica had an academy down. So they have a partnership with a school down in Florida, but they actually just posted a video of all their coaching staff down in the academy in Florida.
Oh, yeah, isn't it like a private school or something?
Yeah. They can't let Oscar in there. Are you crazy? Start cursing everyone out and can't let him there. Pedro says, "Carrega Benfica." Good night, everyone. Thank you, Pedro. Have a good night. Again, if you haven't already confirmed your tickets, let us know. Reach out to us. Social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok.
We'll repost again.
Instagram. We'll repost about the party as well. It's at a university. I think it's a private university because I had sent the article to these guys before. We'll be back next week, hopefully with a win against Vitória at the weekend. Not sure if we'll be here Tuesday, Wednesday, or Monday, depending on everyone's schedules, but we will be here next week. And gentlemen, as always, a pleasure. Everyone, thank you for tuning in. If you're listening after the fact, don't forget to give us a like, share, subscribe, follow, all those fun things. Have a good evening. Viva Sport Lisboa Benfica, and we'll see you next week. Good night.
Good night, boys.
Good night.